Today, I intend to interview two ex-servicemen who were deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq and their views on the Ben Roberts saga. Brooke and Blake, you've served your country in the conflict zone in Iraq and Afghanistan. What was life like for you during that deployment?
Well, I guess it's like any war video or movie that you've ever seen. I guess life over there wasn't ideal, and it's definitely not what we're accustomed to here in Australia. There's things over there that you suppress and that you see, and
Blake?
In terms of life like for the deployment, I mean, yeah, as Brooke said, it's what you'd expect. I mean, it's not luxurious, but by all means, you're not like living in the dirt. Australia being a supportive nation, obviously, we don't create our own bases and support other nations, but we are supported. So we're always under sort of the NATO flag and the NATO banner there. So we're always well supported, and facilities are well enough for us to operate out of in those industries. But yeah.
Okay, in those environments, was it always clear who the enemy was?
I mean, they don't have a uniform, right? So, I mean, all your enemies and that are always sort of blended in. But during that training, like I said, it's very well distinguished what your sort of engagement rules are and what sort of situations you'd be expected to be put in. So you always have a pretty good general idea of what to expect, but in terms of who from, no.
Yeah, and in saying that as well, just to lead on what Blake was saying, is they're not they don't mind using women, children, where for us, when we've got an army, we wear a uniform, we're trained to do X, Y, and Z. Over there, they'll use whatever means possible to fight. So no, you don't always know who you're fighting against because they're in plain clothing. They're not obviously wearing a uniform. They might not be carrying a weapon if that's visible. So sometimes that's their biggest decoy. Yeah.
Okay, Brooke, over there, you as a woman, how were you treated by the local people or the local army?
I was in a small team of all males, so predominantly within my area, I was treated well. And I guess because I wasn't frontline, I didn't go out into the public all that often. However, when I did, I obviously dressed appropriately and to their customs and tradition to show respect. I guess as a woman, you're not really like if a lot of them on the bases run the coffee shops and stuff that we go to, and I guess they don't really engage with us like they would the male population. I guess a woman, they don't really, it's like that we're kind of invisible. I guess that's how I felt. But yeah, as treated badly or anything, I didn't encounter any of that.
Right, so what about this, Blake? Probably, do you believe the Defence Force personally received adequate support from the Australian government during your service over there?
Oh, during the service, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's obviously a lot of pre-training before you go, a lot of requirements to meet, a lot of interviews and assessments to pass to make sure obviously you're stable enough to conduct your job there. So there's definitely a lot of support there at the start. During, I mean, you've always got people to talk to. You've always got your worker next to you, and your hierarchy there, I suppose you can say there to help and support. I mean, obviously those people in that chain of command are obviously generally more experienced as well. May or may not have been in those areas before or on similar deployments. So you can always lean on them for support and advice. Support when you get back is also the same. So I mean, you still got the same assessments and the same sort of debriefing period. So yeah, look, the support is good during the deployments. Yeah.
Can I ask a question though? Were you ever honest? With the assessments that we actually got when we came back with Psy, were you ever honest?
I mean, yeah, I was for sure. I mean, I can put me on my answer. I was, yeah. I mean, there wasn't anything that fazed me too much, and I suppose now that we're sort of elaborating a bit, I mean, during those pre-training pre-assessments, they, I mean, for understandably the right reasons, but they desensitize you to a lot. So, I mean, you generally see a lot of, depending on where you go, of course, and whatever your role is, but the potential is always there to see things that you wouldn't expect to see. So during those pre-assessments and the sort of pre-training to sort of prep you up for your job and for that deployment. So by the time you're there, you're not really fazed by it, which obviously has long-term impacts, which is evident across the board to a lot of people.
And that's what I was getting at. You often think over there like it's normal. Like the things that I think about now, and being out of army and being a mother were like not normal. But when I was over there, like Blake said, you're desensitized because of all the training we get. So it becomes the norm, which in reality, if anyone's seen half of what you've seen or experienced over there, that is not norm. It's not the social norm.
What did you mean by do you tell the truth when you come back when you're getting...
So when you come back, you have like a decompression period and you get assessed by psychs, doctors and the likes. And I'll be honest, I don't think I was ever honest about how I was truly feeling, or I don't even think I understood how I was truly feeling, because obviously you're desensitized to what we witness over there. So, but again, I don't think I would have been honest, because if I was, what light would have that painted me in, and what would that mean for my career if I was honest about maybe being affected by what I'd seen and done. So,
you know, before you go over there, are you briefed on the culture and the religious beliefs of the people over there, and what's your opinion of that?
Yeah, you definitely are exposed to that. You definitely have the training. You definitely go over there with the correct training. However, you have tunnel vision. So if you see, for sake, little kids on base working with older men and being touched in a certain way, that is considered normal over there. So for someone like me seeing that over there, I had tunnel vision. I didn't think anything of it. It's not until I come home and really decompress and then start to remember, like, that is not normal. That's, kids of that age, A shouldn't be working and B shouldn't be touched inappropriately by men. But over there, that's completely normal, considered normal. Another thing that I witnessed over there, I remember being in the smoking area, and there was like clouds of smoke everywhere around the base. And I said to this intelligence officer I was sitting next to, I'm like, what's that? And he said, oh, that's just suicide bombs. There's a few funerals going on today. And then we sat there and had our smoke and went off on our separate ways. Like, that was so considered normal that we didn't even go, oh my God, there was no reaction, because you're obviously desensitized, you're trained.
What do you mean by suicide bombs? What do you mean by that?
There were people obviously outside the base. Again, I wasn't frontline. I never went outside the base, but there were people that were going to funerals with suicide and becoming a suicide bomber, and then killing off the rest of the family, what they hadn't targeted the first time.
Okay, and when you say touching boys...
Do you remember Man Love Thursday? Can you explain that? That was a social norm over there.
Look, so it was always a little bit of a joke, but I mean the religion's a bit different. It's obviously still pretty hard to sort of really grasp the concept of it, but obviously their friends are held pretty close. Man Love Thursday on base. I mean, yeah, it's a bit easy going, but the blokes would walk around holding hands, not us or the US or any other sort of serving nation, but the nationals, the locals, and walk around holding hands, and it can be extremely off-putting for those, but sort of being prepared and that over there, it's a bit weird.
But some of those boys weren't of age.
No, that's
and
right.
that
No,
was
they
the
were
biggest thing.
yeah.
But because a lot of the nationals or the locals would come onto the bases and have jundi shops and shops that we could shop at or go have a coffee or something. But they're the things that we obviously witnessed to, but
ready for.
Didn't think about it at the time, because that was that was normal for them. And so it wasn't until I came back, especially when I became a mother, that I really started to go through and process that. And that is not okay. And I can't believe I ever thought it was.
So just tell me, does it affect some of the servicemen over there when they see that sort of thing?
It's probably more humorous. I mean, it depends, I suppose, how you sort of confront it. But I mean, for me and the guys that I was sort of working with and working alongside, it was more that sort of joke time of the week. You always sort of have a bit of a laugh about it and that, but not, again, you're so desensitized, and from where you grew up, obviously, if that was there, you'd be concerned. If it wasn't someone's father, you'd be concerned. Here in Australia, but over there on deployment, after going through it, being told sort of and sort of guided on what to expect in terms of their religious views, and hearing the music play, 6, 7, 8 times a day, and you become numb to it very quickly, as it is the norm there.
Yeah, so what's the music? Is the music a national anthem or something?
No, it's prayer time. So I mean, it's part of their Muslim religion. They pray 6 to 8 times a day, depending on whatever they can.
Just to answer that question though, what you said, does it bother you when you come back? It depends what job you did over there. And again, Blake and I weren't frontline, but I have friends, especially engineers that I've worked with, that they have nightmares. They still think about it now. It still affects them deeply of what they've seen over there, of what they are likely to do to the children and women over there. And that's, you know, the biggest culture difference I found, you know, being Australian.
So with the immigrants that they're bringing over here and those sort of people, can you see them assimilating into the Australian lifestyle?
I'll answer that question in two parts. First of all, I don't think we should be bringing anyone into Australia until we're focused and looked after our own population. So by what, like employment and living, and making sure that, you know, the Australians are taken care of first, and then obviously looking at immigration and bringing people over. The problem is they're brought up to believe X. So if you're brought up with a belief, if you're brought up with a certain value and a certain background, you know, coming into Australia and then being aligned with our cultures, it'd be like telling, you know, a 4-year-old that Santa's not real. You know, when they've brought up in the last 4 years of their life to believe that Santa comes every Christmas. So I think it would be a hard adjustment, but if they come in here into Australia, then they had to abide by our rules. So when I was in their country, like I said at one of the first questions, when I went out into the public eye, I abided by their rules as a female. I covered up from head to toe and to show respect. But I don't feel like a lot of the people that come into our country show us the same respect on our background, cultures and beliefs.
I think generally, yeah. I don't have too much of a concern about them coming in. I've got a lot of Muslim friends, you know, and just a lot of multicultural friends in general. So I don't think generalising them having an issue is probably accurate. I think they're pretty capable to do so. You know, as part of their sort of religion is very opening, and without going into too much detail, I mean, like most religions, there's obviously set pillars to sort of abide by, and I mean, the Muslim pillars are quite respectful and very courteous. But it's obviously with every religion, you've obviously got those who are and can be quite extreme and take those views quite far. And I think the yeah, no, not so much. Sort of the background checks that the government do before people come in and when they apply for visas, and that needs to be a lot stricter. Obviously, we all know about the ISIS brides coming back and how little of those actually got arrested for supporting those sort of ideologies. But again, across the board, I think it needs to be a lot stricter. In terms of volume, I think it's pretty evident at the moment that the volume of immigration is too high. Can definitely come down. I mean, without being a specialist in the field, it's pretty evident being a homeowner and one who was looking to start looking towards investment properties, it was becoming very hard. And I know that you touched on it previously before coming here. I've done a bit of research on your videos, and we actually come across the same issue where we were looking at an investment property, and the federal government actually bought out about 98% of the blocks before the land has even been registered, and there's only 2 properties left for investors. And it sort of leaves us in a pickle there where we know that the federal government is supporting these immigrants who still don't have a citizenship here in housing them before we're actually housing our own, and especially our own who need it, which obviously verges into, you know, support for veterans, since a lot of them do tend to struggle, and supporting those, you know, single parents and ones who have been affected just by life in general. So definitely a big focus on there. No issue with the immigration and having those people assimilate though.
Well, that's another issue. Now, the main question I'm going to ask of both of you is what's your opinion of the Ben Roberts saga? You first, Blake. What do you?
All right. I think it's all a bit of a joke, to be honest. The personal opinion and reasons to support that would sort of be, you know, this bloke has been a pillar of the Defence Force for quite some time, since what he did was, you know, extremely courageous, you know, saved lives and did unbelievable things for the blokes next to him in a circumstance that no one would ever put themselves in there for any amount of money. You know what I mean? Like the bloke was born to serve. The amount of training and I suppose sort of coding through his training to be so precise with his training, so I suppose, respectful, and the amount of training that we get before going and the amount of deployments he's had, he's obviously extremely familiar with any sort of rules of engagement, any sort of codes of conduct. So he knew exactly what he was doing and how to do it. Obviously, there was a lot of people there, big chain of command. Everyone knows what's going on. So I think it's not just if it's real, it's not just him. And why is he being scapegoated? Yeah, I don't believe it for a second. I think the amount of money that's been spent to pursue it over the last 10 years is a bit of a joke too. But again, a different.
So, in a
different
nutshell, do you
subject.
think that he should be not tried and let go free, or?
I mean, I've got no reason to sort of dispute a trial. I mean, there's already been a couple of trials already. So I mean, for them to continue trying time after time after time, I think it's a bit of a bit of a joke. And at this point, I don't understand how it's possible to get a fair trial because he's been in the media for so long now and tarnished, and he's tried to fight that tarnishment. Um, yeah, it'd be very hard to get a set of jurors or a jury in there who doesn't know the case, so that so that it would be a fair trial.
Okay, Brooke, what about you?
I'd have to agree with everything Blake said, but probably more to touch on the fact that he was a corporal, so therefore he had a chain of command. So, like Blake said, being the scapegoat for it, I quite find it funny how he's the only one that's obviously targeted in the media, and no one else is. When he was only the ranks go private, lance corporal, corporal. So he was third up. You've got sergeant, warrant officer, class 1, warrant officer, class 2. You've got captain, lieutenants, captains, majors, all above him, but no one else has been mentioned. But a corporal that's third in the ranking system is the one that's, been the
Shot caller.
the shot caller.
So you believe that he was taking orders off somebody else? You believe that?
I mean, it depends on the situation.
I
Right?
mean, he was obviously highly trained in and an expert in his role. So if he would have had the ability to make decisions on the ground. But like Blake said, there's no one in Australia that would go over there for any amount of money and fight what they've been fighting. And I don't really have anything else. But it also brings up the question for me: why would you go and join the Defence Force if you're under that? If something that you could do within the Defence Force, if you felt like you were doing within your rules of engagement, you could be under so much public scrutiny, and basically left out in the cold by Australia, because that's what we did to him. The way that we arrested him on not only at an airport in front of his parents, but also all the media was there at the right time. The way that we treated him from the start is, I don't know why anyone would want to join the Defence Force, personally.
The SAS soldiers are arguably, obviously, one of the top trained soldiers across the globe. Right, they're specialists in every weapon system. They're so perfect. They're so professional that their training ensures that they are almost the perfect soldier. I mean, they rival those of the SEALs and etc. Like they are the pinnacle soldier across the globe. So for them to sort of go so rogue just doesn't make sense. It just does not make sense.
Was he sent over there to do a certain job? Would he have orders?
Well, it's hard. I mean, they were there very early. I think the war started in like 2003, and it sort of really died down around that sort of 2013, 2014 mark. So when we went, it obviously was nowhere near as bad as it used to be. But during those kinds of soldiers, those perfect soldiers, are there before anyone else. So the conditions that we were in would have been nothing like the conditions.
We're in 5-star. Yeah.
Like, I mean, there was a Burger King on base. Like, I mean, like in Afghanistan. So I mean, it's pretty wild how developed the base has got by the time that we had an opportunity to go. Obviously, there wasn't that when they were there. So their mission, don't know. Obviously, top secret, hidden. No one really knew that they were there sort of that early at that time anyway. No idea, but they know.
And the thing too is, what is an enemy? Is the enemy could be as simple as a spotter, right? And is the one that's telling how do I say that? Like the spotters. Like you don't know who the enemy are because they could be a woman,
It's
it could
like
be
scouts,
they could be a scout, they could be a 4-year-old boy, they could be a 5. Like you just don't know who you're fighting over there. It's not like in Australia where we wouldn't send our 4-year-olds to go fight. We wouldn't send the stay-at-home mum to go and wear a suicide vest. We're the people that would we're not vigilantes, we're not running around with weapons. So the people that are fighting, it's very clear who they're fighting because we're in uniform and we have weapons. So it's very clear. But over there, it's that's probably one of their biggest assets almost, is because anyone's willing to fight for their religion. That's what they believe.
which was obviously hard at times through your sort of pre-work training, and that you sort of get a bit of a history on how the war's developed. So when you get your ROEs and your conditions and et cetera, you sort of learn how it's gotten to where you are then. And whether it was during his time or a mix of the deployments he had there, every time he went, I guarantee, was a different engagement. It was different rules, different regulations, different ways to approach
Be evolving
whatever
all the
mission
time.
he had at the time. And one of the biggest stories I remember hearing there during that history brief was how dramatically it changed, and how I suppose the enemy, for lack of a better sense, understood how it was working. And I think it was in a movie or something as well, but it's true to the fact that when they were there, they understood that because we come under NATO, we can't engage unarmed combatants, right? An unarmed combatant isn't an enemy. So they'd essentially take up a firing position, shoot at you or shoot at the team, et cetera, and then drop the weapon and then walk past you on the street. You know it's them because you've seen them through your scope or whatever the means were. But you couldn't now engage them, right? And it progressed through the war that, they'd eventually just walk past you and go out.
Outsmarted us.
Yeah, and they'd go to like the next gun case and they'd set up a new position. So by the time your patrol went around the block and went over to the next point, they were already ready for you to walk past, and they'd have another crack. And then the same thing. So once they sort of developed that understanding, the rules of engagement would change almost on the fly, where they were then able to sort of detain these people if they knew that they were the person shooting at them and stuff like that. So it was a forever changing environment, and obviously that's why those perfect soldiers, so to speak, were the ones to do a lot of the work.
And that's the biggest advantage, right? Because we are governed by rules and regulations and rules of engagement, where they don't have that. It's just free for all, and so that's the thing. They could shoot at you and then walk, if they didn't have a weapon, walk past you in the next 5 minutes, and you couldn't engage. Well, I'll talk about one more thing before we go. You asked about the level of support when you get... Yes, there is level of support to be given, but the soldier's got to take that support. And you've got to remember, if you've been in 5, 10, 15 years and you've been trained to be a certain way, which is not to show weakness and be strong and you're almost a robot, because that's how you're desensitized. That's how military has to break you down to build you up. Otherwise, you wouldn't do what we do, because who would in their right mind go overseas?
Bit of a stigma era too.
But the thing is, you've got to accept that support, and a lot of them don't accept that support straight away until it's either too late or down the track. But what I found after getting out after 12 years is that first 12 months is the crucial and the hardest, and I don't feel like there is enough. There might be support that is available, but I don't think it should be governed that you have to attend X type of training to make sure that you are mentally and physically okay. Because that first 12 months, you don't know who you are. You don't know what to think. You don't know who you are without the green. You don't know who you are without the uniform, and you're not being told what to do every day. And then you're pushed out into civilian life and expected to be a civilian. And a lot of these guys have been in for 12, 15 years.
Yeah, it seems like that the government have probably got to do more investigation into the life of a soldier.
I think it needs to be, once you leave Army, that first 12 months, there has to be a program where you have to attend something to make sure, because that's when all the suicides happen. All the people I serve with either have committed suicide or been in trouble with bikies because they get into the wrong crowds, they've been on drugs, alcohol, and they've all been into rehab. and it's all the frontline people that I'm talking about. It's all the ones that have done things that we could only see in movies or couldn't even imagine. So I feel like the government needs to look at that and do better. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there'd be a safer place here in Australia. Is that they've got to look into it, and I'm sure some politicians will look into it after the next election.
Let's hope.
Okay.
All right.
No, that's good.